Camilla used to be the most hated woman in Britain. People called her the third person in a marriage that the whole world was watching, and that marriage eventually fell apart. But Queen Camilla didn't make it through the 1990s just by getting lucky. She made it through by being really patient in a smart way, and that patience slowly turned her into a queen that people actually respect in the UK. The royal family's big fight isn't just about two brothers not getting along. It's about the quiet, behind-the-scenes power of a woman who has basically become the #1 gatekeeper of the crown. As 2026 gets going, the drama she's stirring up behind palace doors shows a private truth that looks very different from her calm, supportive public image. This is the story of how a man's girlfriend on the side became his queen and caused the royal family to fight just to stay alive. Prince Harry's 2023 book called Spare started a big confrontation that has only gotten more intense as we move into 2026. He accused Camilla of throwing him under the bus just to make herself look better, and that accusation hits at the very heart of how she went from an outsider to a queen. That wasn't just Harry being dramatic. It was a very clear description of a plan she had been working on for decades. After Princess Diana died, Camilla didn't rush out into the public eye. Instead, she and King Charles hired experienced PR people like Mark Boland to carry out something called Operation Parker Bowles, which was a slow and careful plan to fix her image. The goal was to turn the other woman into someone who seemed harmless and supportive, through carefully planned leaks to the press and staged public appearances. By 2026, that image makeover is basically done. But the cost of it was completely destroying the king's relationship with his youngest son. Camilla isn't just a wife anymore. She's like a political player inside the palace who understands that keeping the monarchy stable sometimes means coldly pushing personal feelings aside for the good of the crown. The clearest sign of Camilla's own personal power can be found at Ray Mill House, her private getaway in Wiltshire. While she officially lives at Clarence House and Buckingham Palace, Ray Mill is really where she feels most at home. She bought it for £850,000 back in 1996 after her divorce from Andrew Parker Bowles, and the 17-acre property represents a life that the king can't fully control. It's a place that's deliberately a little messy, which is totally different from the king's need for everything to be neat and perfect. At Ray Mill, the cushions aren't all fluffed up, the stables are actually used, and the air often smells like the cigarettes she's famously tried hard to quit. This house is basically her way of saying she does things her own way. It's where she spends time with her own kids and grandkids, far away from all the strict and suffocating rules of the royal court. In early 2025, the king even bought a nearby property worth £3 million just to make sure she has total privacy there. That move shows just how important this safe space is to keeping her mentally strong. Inside those walls, Camilla isn't the queen. She's just a woman who kept her own name, her own money, and her own backup plan. This independence is what makes her so powerful in the current family feud. She doesn't need the crown to feel like somebody, and that gives her a mental edge that younger royals who depend on the family just don't have. As King Charles heads into 2026 with a lighter cancer treatment schedule, Camilla has locked in her role as the ultimate gatekeeper. This is where the quiet stirring happening behind palace doors turns into a serious high-stakes storm. She's the one keeping track of the king's energy, sorting through his mail, and deciding which family members actually get to meet with him. This setup has created a deep and growing bitterness with the Prince and Princess of Wales. Even though Kate is often seen as the face of the royal family's future, reports say that she and Camilla can barely stand to be in the same room anymore as they both fight to shape what the king's time on the throne will mean. The tension between them is real and happening right now. It's centered around how to handle kicking Prince Andrew out of Royal Lodge and whether Prince Harry might come back. Camilla's game plan for 2026 is all about keeping things locked down tight. She's not interested in messy make-up moments that might mess up the king's recovery or make the crown look bad. By controlling who gets to physically and emotionally be around the king, she has become the filter that all family business has to go through, and that's something Prince William is finding harder and harder to deal with as he gets ready for his own future as king. Making up in the royal family is never free. It comes with a big, often hidden price tag. For Prince Harry, that price is paid by apologizing publicly and privately, and specifically to the woman he once called dangerous. As January 2026 begins, the practical walls between the Duke of Sussex and the crown are finally starting to come down a little, but the emotional wall is still just as tall as ever. On Wednesday, January 21, 2026, Harry was spotted sneaking into the back of Court 76 at the Royal Courts of Justice in London. Surrounded by his security team, he sat quietly, holding a water bottle and carrying a grudge that had been building for decades. This is the third big newspaper company he's gone after in court, a final fight in his war against the British press that he says made him completely paranoid. But as he sits in that courtroom, the palace isn't saying a single word. The Harry tax is the painful realization that even if he wins his court cases, the price of getting back into his dad's life has been set so high he might never be willing to pay it. The biggest change in early 2026 has been the total flip when it comes to Harry's security situation. Ever since he stepped back from royal duties in 2020, Harry has only been given custom protection that had to be approved each time by Ravec, the government group that handles royal safety. For years he argued that old and outdated safety assessments were putting his wife and kids in danger, pointing to real threats that most people never hear about. Now, in the first weeks of 2026, a new safety review has reportedly brought back automatic armed police protection for him. Even though this looks like a win on paper, it's actually a double-edged sword. To British taxpayers, it's like paying a different kind of tax, spending money to protect a guy who chose to move away. To the palace, it takes away Harry's main excuse for staying out of the UK. With security no longer being the problem, everything shifts back to the personal stuff. The shield of the security argument has been ripped away, leaving only the raw, unresolved tension between a son and his stepmom. In what's being called a big peace offering in mid-January 2026, King Charles reportedly invited Harry and Meghan to stay at Highgrove House, his beloved country estate in Gloucestershire, during their planned visit for the Invictus Games kickoff. Highgrove isn't just some house. It's a 900-acre organic estate that is basically the physical version of Charles's soul. It's where he gardens, where he goes to get away from everything, and most importantly, it's a place where Camilla's presence is everywhere. By offering Highgrove, a place only 76 miles from Birmingham but a whole world away from the nosy eyes of London, the king is testing whether Harry is willing to exist inside the world that Camilla has spent 30 years building and perfecting. This is what people are calling the Camilla condition. Staying at Highgrove means sleeping under the same roof that Harry once saw as the place that caused his mom the most pain. It's a strategic invitation designed to push Harry into accepting the new family pecking order. If he says no, he looks like the one blocking peace. If he says yes, he's basically admitting that Camilla is the woman of the house. The real meaning of the Harry tax becomes most obvious when you look at the specific demand for an apology. People close to the royal family have pointed out that while the king is deeply sad about the distance between them, he's also a man with deep loyalties that he won't give up. The king's health updates in 2026 have been good, a noticeably positive stage where his cancer treatment has been reduced, but coming so close to serious illness has made him less patient with family drama. He has reportedly told his advisors that Camilla's place in his life is not up for debate. Any road back for Harry now requires a formal, possibly public show of respect toward the Queen. The king, a man who loves writing things down and communicating thoughtfully, is said to be waiting for a letter or a statement that takes back the villain story Harry told about Camilla in Spare. For Harry, this is an incredibly painful choice. To apologize to Camilla feels like betraying the memory of Princess Diana. But to refuse means staying in exile while his dad's reign keeps going without him. Harry's day-to-day life in 2026 is a picture of being left out and alone. While he was sitting in that courtroom this week, Charles and Camilla were at Sandringham going to church and waving to people who came out to see them in the cold Norfolk air. The difference couldn't be more obvious. One man is fighting old ghosts from 1993 and 2011 inside a cold, sterile courtroom. The other is leaning on the steady love and support of a woman who has become his rock. The Harry tax is also about time. Every month that goes by without them making up makes the way things are now feel more and more permanent. In 2026, the palace isn't even reacting to Harry anymore. They are moving on without him. The whole system of the monarchy has adjusted to his absence, and Camilla is the one holding the blueprints for what happens next. Even as whispers go around in the press about Meghan possibly coming back to the UK with Archie and Lily, the price of that return is still giving up the whole story Harry spent years building about himself. The stir Camilla is causing isn't about loud fights, but about quiet, firm lines she won't let anyone cross. She hasn't spoken publicly about Harry's accusations, and that silence has turned out to be her most powerful weapon. By choosing not to respond, she's let Harry look like the one stuck in a loop of paranoia and lawsuits while she stays looking like the calm and classy woman standing by the king's side. The Harry tax is really just the price of peace. It's the cost of admitting that the third person in the marriage didn't just hang around. She actually won. As Harry gets ready to give his final testimony in his privacy case, the whole world is watching to see if he'll finally pay the price and walk through the gates of Highgrove, or if he'll choose to stay in the expensive, lonely safety of the life he built for himself. The whole structure of the royal family in 2026 isn't one united thing anymore. It's a divided map of competing goals and separate little courts. What started as small disagreements over schedules has turned into a clear and real split between King Charles and Queen Camilla's camp at Buckingham Palace and the growing power base of the Prince and Princess of Wales over at Kensington Palace. This invisible border is most obvious in the smart move William and Kate made by going to Forest Lodge, an 8-bedroom mansion inside Windsor Great Park that they've made their permanent home. By settling down in Windsor for good, the Wales family has basically taken over the local royal world, a move that insiders say was done specifically to push back against Camilla's growing control over the king's daily schedule. The tension has gotten so thick that on Wednesday, January 14, 2026, reports came out saying that Kate and Camilla can barely be in the same room without things getting weirdly stiff and polite. William has made his position stronger by hiring a top-notch crisis management expert from the big global company Edelman, a hiring decision that signals he's done letting his dad's people handle his public image. This expansion of his private team is clearly a defensive move against the Queen, who has spent the last year tightening the circle of people who get to have a say in the king's big long-term decisions. The fight over houses has become the main battleground in this conflict, specifically around the messy and unresolved issue of Royal Lodge. While people on the outside see the push to kick Prince Andrew out as just a matter of royal discipline, behind the scenes it's actually a high-stakes tug-of-war between the Queen and the future king. Andrew actually believes that the king's non-stop pressure on him to leave the 30-room mansion is being driven by a hidden plan connected to Camilla's future security. Rumors going around within the family suggest that the Queen has her eye on Royal Lodge as her own private home base in Windsor if she outlives the king, similar to how the late Queen Mother did things. This idea has run into serious pushback from William, who has been described as the main driving force behind finally dealing with Andrew and stripping him of his titles in late 2025. To William, that property is a key piece in the future of his own family, and the idea of it being used to lock in Camilla's permanent place in Windsor is something he feels really strongly about. Things boiled over during the Christmas walk at Sandringham when the king overruled William's wish to leave certain family members out. That decision was widely seen as a win for Camilla, who prefers to keep up a broad and inclusive family image on the outside even while everything on the inside is falling apart.